I'm going to teach you today about the three branches of government. So first, I'm going to let you listen to a song that will tell you a little bit more about the three branches of government.
Yeah, it's the legislative branch.
Yeah, it's the courts.
You gotta go through me. Who's calling the shots in the Oval Office? Vocabulary. Let's go. It goes check, check, two-state balance, not just one. We bring three talents, the powers. Gotta keep them separated. That's the motto. We made it. Three branches of government, that's all. Legislative writes the laws. Executive executes laws so official. The court system is judicial. I'm the legislative branch. I write laws. Without me, it'll be anarchy, of course. Say my name. I'm called Congress, sitting on Capitol Hill. Kid, that's honest. Made up of the Senate and the House of Reps. We write a bill and send it to the president's desk. We legislate, and we roll deep. 535 members in my clique. See, Senate, each state sends 100 senators in all. That's how we do. The House of Representatives is by population. Cali reps the hardest, no debating. If my bill gets a presidential veto, I can override that with enough people. I wrote the budget and I'm passing the laws. No, I'ma grab the mic and pass it on. Oh, hey, Congress, sometimes I need to mess with your plans. I carry out laws, I'm the executive branch. I'm the president. Roll with the VP and cabinet. I'll veto your laws if I'm not having it. So hail to the commander-in-chief. All the armed forces need to follow me. My power's been blossoming since George Washington stepped into the office and did awesome things. I got a bowling alley in my home where I call in airstrikes from invisible drones. Who appoints the cabinet and judges too? The boss in the Oval Office, that's who.
Check, check, I'ma keep it short, the judicial system. I'm the courts, my highest court, that's supreme. All 9 justices know what I mean. Nominated by the press, confirmed by the Senate. No term limits, they serve a life sentence. Plead your case, it's not unusual for me to rule a law unconstitutional.
So I write a law, well I might veto it, and I can override that. You know it, man. I'm executive, the one that carries it
It
out.
can get challenged in the courts, that's what I'm all about. I might declare it unconstitutional.
I can impeach judges who act unusual. I nominate justices in the first place. I can impeach you too if you step out of place. Three branches of government, that's all. Legislative writes the laws. Executive executes laws so official. The court system is judicial. Three branches of government, that's all. Legislative writes the laws. Executive executes laws so official. The court system is judicial. It goes check, check, two-state balance, not just one. We bring three talents, the powers. Gotta keep them separated. That's the motto. We made it.
Okay. So now that we learned a little bit more about our branches of government, we're going to talk about how this works in our school, because it's actually kind of similar. So, we have rules in our school that are really important to follow, right? And everyone in the school has their own responsibilities to make sure everything works out well. They all combine together to make sure something is important. If students were allowed to just run around in the halls, what would happen?
People would get hurt.
Yeah, or what if people were just allowed to throw garbage on the floor?
You'd have bugs and lice.
Yeah, the school would be dirty.
Yeah, and they break windows or break
Yeah.
things in the school.
If we make sure everyone's safe and following the rules, we're making the school a better place. So that's exactly what the government does. They make rules, which are like, they're laws. So they're similar. They're just a little bit different. And we're going to learn a little bit more about the three branches of government so you can see how they make our country a safer place. So we're going to view this PowerPoint about the three branches of government. So, first, I'm going to ask you what you already know. Do you know who the President of the United States is right now?
Donald Trump.
Yes. Do you know who writes the laws right now?
Congress and the Senate.
Okay.
Or the Senate is Congress and the House of Representatives.
Yes.
Called the Senate.
Okay. And who makes sure no one gets too much power?
Judges, the judicial.
Okay. So that's a good way to start. We're going to talk about first the Constitution, because the Constitution is what made the three branches of government. The Constitution gives all Americans rights so we can live a happy and healthy life. If something is not fair and something they're doing isn't following the Constitution, it's called unconstitutional. Can you say that with me?
Unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional. So the Constitution is what created the three branches of government. These branches are the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. Now we'll talk more a little bit about each branch. The legislative branch is made up of Congress, which has two different parts. They have the House of Representatives and the Senate. Now, back when this was made, they were arguing over how they should, break up these representatives. The big states, they said the more population they have, the more representatives they should have. But the small states said that's not fair. We should each get an equal number of people to represent us. So that's why there is 2 senators for each state. Each state gets 2 senators no matter how big or small they are. But the House of Representatives, they get representatives based on their population. So the more people they have in their state, the more representatives they get. Now the representatives, there's 435 people in the House. Now, if every state gets 2 senators, how many people are in the Senate?
100.
100, yes. And the legislative branch, they make and introduce bills that they want to become law. So they come up with an idea, and they think, wow, that'd be a really good law for us to have, and it's going to make us healthier, happier, safer. And they try to write it, and then they try to send it to the president to see if he'll confirm it to be a law. That's when it goes to the executive branch. It's made up of the president and his vice president, and all of his cabinet members. The cabinet members are heads of different departments that help the president make important decisions. So the president, he does this thing called carry out the law. He can either sign a bill and make it a law, or he can veto it. If he doesn't like it, he's going to say, nope. He puts a veto stamp on and he sends it back to them to try to override it, and they need 2/3 to override it. He's also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, which means he's in charge of the military. He says what goes with the military, and he determines if people are going to be in the military or where they're going to go.
Or war?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he doesn't actually declare war.
No.
Congress declares war. The executive branch can also recommend new laws. So if the president thinks that something should be a law, he can recommend it to be a law. Do you know how many years a president can serve?
8. Well, 4 first. If they get re-elected, so that the total number he can ever serve is 8.
Yes, because each term is 4 years. Yes, that's correct. All right, and then there's the judicial branch. It's made up of 9 Supreme Court justices. Do you know how long a judge can serve?
Life.
Yeah, they can serve until they decide they want to step down, or they do something that creates them responsible for having to step down, kind of like if they would be removed from office. But otherwise, they can stay there the entire time they're there. And do you know who appoints these judges?
The president.
The president does. And then, to make sure everything's staying fair, like we were talking about with checks and balances, the Senate confirms these judges to make sure. Okay. And the Supreme Court also makes sure that laws are constitutional. If a law is unconstitutional, it means it's fair and it does not follow what's said in the Constitution. For this reason, the Supreme Court interprets the laws that you see. They can change or overturn any decision on any previous court case. It doesn't matter which court case it was from. They're the highest court, so what they say goes. And then all the branches. So that was the question I asked you last on which you think make sure everyone is fair. All of the branches actually make sure that all the other branches are fair, because every branch works together to make sure none of the other branches have too much power. It's called checks and balances. Because back when we were ruled by Britain, they were scared that we would be run over too much by one person, and the creators didn't want that to happen, so they made 3 different branches to make sure they could all check on each other to make sure none of them was getting too much power. So today I'm going to have you make a tree that shows you what the different branches do. So here's a piece of paper, here's a pencil. So you're just gonna need to make 3 different parts to your tree. So representing all of the different parts, doesn't need to be perfect.
I'm not very artistic.
Just gotta make it a little bigger.
Oh.
So you can, because you're gonna need to say who's in these branches and what they do.
Sorry.
That's okay. There you go. Okay, and then just put stems,
Tree trunk.
just so they're all connected. Yep. There you go. And then at the bottom, I want you to write the 3 branches of government. So you know what this is when you look back at it. Okay. So each of these different parts of your tree will be each of the branches. So what are the 3 branches?
The executive.
Yep. So write one with the executive. Yep. What's the next one?
The judicial. Yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That's judges.
Judicial. Yep. And then who makes the laws in Congress? What is their branch called?
It's the Senate and the House of Representatives.
What is their branch called? It starts with an L, like the laws that they create.
Legislative.
Legislative.
I'm
Yep.
Forgot that.
That's okay. And then I just want you to write underneath each of them what they do. The legislative branch, Congress, what do?
They come up with the law.
They come up and write the law. Yep. So you can just come up with the laws. Okay. And then judicial, what do?
They make sure that the law is constitutional.
Yes. Okay.
The executive is the president, and he rules everything. When the law comes through, he can either sign it into law,
Yep.
or he can reject it and send it back
Yep.
to the legislature.
What's it called when he rejects the
Veto.
law? Yes. So he can do that. Do you know who else the executive branch is made up of besides the president?
His cabinet.
And who is next in line to the president that also is part of the executive branch?
Vice president.
Yes. Good job. That's the entire thing.
Yeah, the vice president will become president if anything happens to our president.
That is true. Okay. And then in the middle, I want you to write what they all have in common. What do they do that they all have to do to make sure all of the other branches...
They gotta make sure everyone's on the right playing field, so to speak.
Yeah, so they check.
Checks and balance. Make sure everything is right and it matches what our Constitution was written
Yeah,
on.
so you can write that in the middle. Yep. So they check and balance each other to make sure that
It's fair.
everyone is being fair, because we don't want to have a situation like when Britain used to rule us again, where we have a king and everyone has too much power. So we want to make sure none of the branches have too much power. Good. Okay. Now we're just going to see what you learned with these. So I have 3 different pieces of paper for you. It says judicial, executive, and legislative. All I need you to do is to hold up the piece of paper that represents the branch I'm talking about when I say the statement. Okay? So to give you an example, if I say, which branch has senators in it, which one would you hold up? You'd hold up the legislative. Legislative, yep. Okay. So now that you know what to do, we're going to practice. We're going to actually go into the real questions. Okay. Which branch is made up of Congress?
Legislative.
Yep. And what are the 2 different parts of Congress?
The House and Congress.
Congress is the over
The over thing.
Yep.
House and the Senate.
Yes, good job.
Senate representatives.
Which branch can sign or veto the laws?
Judicial.
Think about the one with the president.
Oh, the president. Oh, I'm sorry.
Because he can sign or he can veto the laws, right?
Right, and then they gotta make sure it's okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Executive.
Yes, that's good. That's okay. We're learning still. Which branch is made up of the president, his cabinet, and the vice president?
The executive.
Yes, the executive. And which branch looks over the laws to determine if they're constitutional or not? That one's the judicial. Yep.
Right. They're
Yep.
the ones that.
So after a law already becomes official, that's when they're going to review it, not
Yeah.
when it's a bill.
Right.
The president determines that. Okay. Which branch writes the laws?
Legislative.
Yes. Okay. Do you know can either of the two parts of Congress write laws, both the House and the Senate?
Yes.
Yes. Good job. All right, and finally, which branch is made up of the Supreme Court justices?
Judicial.
Yeah, the judicial branch.
Right.
Yeah, that's all we have. So I just want to remind you one more time that we have these three branches: the legislative, the judicial, and the executive. The executive is made up of.
The president, vice president, and the cabinet.
Yep. The judicial is made up of,
Supreme Court justice.
and the legislative branch is made up of.
The senators in the House of Representatives.
Yes, which is
The
called,
senators.
which
The Senate.
but
Yeah.
they're called all together.
Now you put me on the spot. Congress.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. And they all work together to.
Make our country a better country. Write laws that make a difference. Make our country a safe place to be.
And they all do what to make sure.
They go through checks and balances to make sure no one's giving like you all the power, and you can do something in your state that in our state we can't.
Yeah, good
or
job.
as a person.
That's all I needed you to learn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.